welcome back to the shop. We're going to continue on with this rear 44 carbine. If you want to know the little bit of history and information, whatever else, go see the disassembly video and we'll get you set up there. The first couple of minutes I try to go into a little bit of history and things about the gun. It's not too rich on this. There's not a whole lot there, but it can be interesting if you like it. If you saw the disassembly video, we're going to start back kind of this. It's all just in reverse. So we're going to put the shell latches back into it, and I'll try and make the best notes I can here. So you're going to this guy, and it's going to fall underneath here, and you're going to take the smaller of those two coil springs, and it fits here on that front little nub on that shell latch into there, and the longer one will fit in here, but we'll put that in after we get the rest of this together. This guy goes in like this. Just stick it in here, and you want that top right there will fit into that little slot in the other piece ever so slightly, and then you want the tail of this nub to fit over that spring. When you get it, you can kind of compress it with your fingers and take the larger of those two pins that are going to go through, and you're just going to have to thumb this all together and probably create some new curse words. You shouldn't have to like beat on it to get this thing to go in. It should pretty well establish itself relatively easy. And if not, then you need to kind of back off and think about what's going on. This one does tend to give trouble, and I don't know why. It never, ever wants to cooperate. The bottom half of this thing here is not wanting to line up. There we go. Now we got it. There we go. And that's as far as she goes. But getting all those little holes to line up can be difficult. Now, the longer of the two springs will go in this other little nub here, and your little flat spring will fall on top of that. This one's difficult only in the sense that trying to get this pin started can be a pain in the ass. But once it goes in there, it really gives you any issue. Little tap, I'm not hitting it very hard at all. This receiver is aluminum, so you got to be careful with it. From there, we're going to put our safety back in. I'm going to use my long needle nose here. Let's see if I can keep it in the light. There is a recessed hole in the frame. There you go. I don't know if you can see that or not, where it fell into. Let's see if I can get you some light in there. See that? There's that little hole in there, and it falls into that. Red goes on the left side here, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take that flat spot and put it in there, and I'll take a small screwdriver after I get the spring and detent in, and I apologize if this isn't show on camera, but I'll push the little detent in and then pass the screwdriver over. Now remember, the little V that's sticking up there, that little V has to rotate down, so in this case it needs to rotate clockwise, and it'll fall into that detent, because if you go the other way, you're going to get that safety notch in that detent, and you're going to have a pain in the ass trying to get that back out of there. It sucks if that happens, and I know this from other guns, not this one, but it's the same concepts. Now that that's in there, we can put our trigger assembly back in. So you're going to take that, your disconnector, and your shear, and they should fall in relatively easy. The hardest part is getting that sear spring to go into its little recess and hole. Get that in there, And the pin will go in relatively easy, but you're going to have to fight that shear spring a little bit. What I was saying, you get your trigger grip in here, and you're going to get that little spring down in its hole, the shear spring. Get in there. I think I got it. I think I got you, motherfucker. Get in your hole. There we go. Okay. So you're gonna have to kind of push everything down, fight that stupid spring, and then get the pin started so it actually grabs the trigger itself. You're probably gonna have to come back up here and try and. Oh, there we go. Well, let's see. Oh, disconnector's not in place. Bastard. Fucking. None of it's in place. Motherfucker. There we go. I get it? Nope. Fucking seared. God damn it. Listen, you motherfucker. There we go. Oh. There we go. And we'll push it through. This is actually not even the hardest part about getting this thing back together. Getting that hammer and its stuff back in there. It's going to be a pain in the arse. So, now we have the spring and plunger. If you have the older style, obviously that spring and plunger is going to have to go in, and then you're going to have to fight it along the way as well. And that doesn't have to be real tight, man. It just needs to be on there. So you should have that. Whoopty, flop and do. Now we need to put our cartridge stop in, or excuse me, lifter. The lifter, cartridge lifter. Carrier, shell carrier, whatever you want to call it. That thing that makes the bullets go up and down. That'll pop into its little recesses here on each side. From there you let that flop down, and we're going to put in carrier dog. It's going to sit in there and line those two holes up. If you can get it to stay like so, and that little shorty pin, you can see, will just drop right in there, as long as you keep everything aligned, and it'll fall right into place there. Now we can put a carrier spring. So the short end of this, so you're looking at this here goes up as you're putting it in. And you're going to want to use a small pair of pliers. This thing's kind of a pain in the ass. And the first couple of times I did this, I fought it a lot. Come on, spring, stop being a fucking bitch. Motherfucker. So, I mean, just wants to be an absolute fucking cunt. There we go. So, got it slid in. You can see how it falls in there, and then that'll so should be good there. Now you have that pin that's got the larger head on one side. I'll go through here. And you are going to have to take your pliers back in there and kind of line that hole up so that it slides in. A little punch and kind of push it down. There we go. And then that will force that piece just to go back and forth like it's supposed to. So now it's a real positive snap. So we've got that in there. Next, we're going to put this, I don't know what you call that thing, but whatever, it goes in here. Slide it in there and take your pin and get her in, and it should go in relatively easy. On this particular one, you do have to tap it in the rest of the way. Not real hard, but I think they're tapered pins. I could be wrong. That the hole slightly smaller. I don't know. Now the fun part. When you put the hammer back in here, you have to make sure that you put these springs in the correct direction. So on each side, it's going to sit in there like this. So this one's going to go in through here, and you're just going to kind of wind it and turn it till it goes in, and kind of leave it pointed down. The same thing on this side, you're going to want to go it in like this. So you kind of have to poke it through the hole and let it sit down like that. And what you're trying to do when you put the hammer in here is that you're going to fight that little plunger and detent that's the back of this little button thing that we just put in, and you're fighting these springs to make sure that they line up, and they're going to sit underneath this part of the hammer here, this little pin and roller. So what you have to do is you have to stick it in there and then compress that plunger deal, and you have to be able to hold the hammer in under spring tension. And keep in mind you're fighting all of the springs. Damn it. You have to make sure these little bastards stay out of your way too, which is difficult. Motherfucker. Of course. Fucking. What I'm going to try and do is start the... No, dipshit. It'd have been easier too if I'd have told you this from the beginning. Once you get the hammer in there, put your pin that was holding those in before in there, and this way what you can do is you can roll these legs back out and down out of the way, and then start your pin. God, you motherfucker. See, that's what I'm talking about. This thing is a fucking bitch. Fuck. Yep, that didn't work at all. Whoop. Alright. I knew there's a reason I had to do it the other way, like I was telling you to. I forgot that when you get that hammer in there, you have to make sure that that stud is actually rolling onto those fucking springs. And that's why I wanted them pointed down a little bit. I guess if you wanted real gunsmithing advice and disassembly and stuff like that, you should have sought, you know, a competent professional gunsmith, not me. But here we go. And last time I did this, it went in with like no problems at all. And of course here, I'm fucking fighting the shit out of it. Okay, now I can get my pin in there. It goes betwixt those springs. There we go. Fuck you. That is the most difficult part, and now we've got to take these springs, and that's why this little V-cut screwdriver comes in so handy. Because you can use it to grasp that, stick it up into those little grooves on the hammer pin. Just like so. Test it. Cool. There's the trigger group. Yeah, those things are such a pain in the dick. Hate them. Just fucking hate them. I gotta try to make sure the pin so we can sit in there. Okay. So now, we'll go back to the action here. We're going to put our piston back in there near a bolt, just like this, You're going to set it down in here. You might have to wiggle it back and forth a little bit, tilt it just a hair. and you can push it forward and push it so it like rotates into battery, and then take your ejector, stick it in there. Get a little screw for the ejector, get her screwed in like so. Doesn't need a whole lot, man. Like I said, it's an aluminum receiver, so be careful. Turn it back up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our charging handle, and it falls into that little gap right there on the action rod, or whatever you want to call that, and stick it through the ejection port and slide that action rod over it until it falls in, and the whole thing should just kind of push down and push forward, and that's in full battery there. Now we get to fight the mag tube and the spring. So if you notice, the center of that cut is offset. That should go up, so as you put it through that action rod there, it falls into that tongue like that. So after you get your mag tube in here, you take the spring, and you're going to have to lift the mag tube up just a hair, because it actually has a recess that it falls into on the receiver. I don't know if you can see that or not. Right there, you can see that little gap where the face of this mag tube will fit into a recess there. But you have to lift that out of that recess and feed this action spring over this tube. Now, I'm probably going to have to stand this up and go off camera with it, because it's a fucking pain in the ass, and I'm going to launch it across the fucking shop. But maybe not. It's a pretty stout spring, just so you know. This one's wore out, actually. I got new springs coming. That spring pack I was talking about in the disassembly video, I may not even spoke about it. The only thing you can really get for these things, I mean, unless you find used parts, are these springs. The action spring, mag tube spring. They are available at gunsprings.com, Wolf Gun Springs, whatever. If you know the business, you know what I'm talking about. They are available, and you can replace them. This guy here is going to fit in. It's got it's going to fit there. Drop down. You want to kind of line this hole up and try not to let that spring come loose and launch it. You'll regret it. Like I said, this one's wore out and it's still got some authority to it, so you can tap that in there if you need to. Bastard. There we go. Before we put it back in the stock here, I'm going to mention again, you have to have this action lock back. Oh, fucking kidding me? Spring or pins are falling out of here, man. What the hell? But you're going to stick it in like an M1 carbine. Stick it down in there and then rock it down into the stock. Your barrel band. Stick it on there. In this case, this sling swivel will fit in there. A little bit of a pinch, you don't want it too tight, but not too loose, I guess. This stud's got to be there. There we go. Bastard. That's it, man. That's all there is to it. As I showed you, fighting those hammer springs is a fucking pain in the ass. Just a huge dick off. Really good guns, though, for the most part. They work pretty well. I think they're a little bit ammunition fickle sometimes. There we go. Overall, pretty good guns, though. Anyways, like I said, I apologize for the videos coming so late, or so far in between videos. I was recovering from the broken leg, and then after that I was playing catch up in the shop. I had a ton of stuff I had to get caught up on projects that have been here for a while to begin with, and then I was out for a couple of weeks, so I couldn't do jack and squat. I've tried to keep up with your guys' comments on the existing videos. If I've missed something, I'm sorry. Just kind of the way life is. That's it. If you got any questions, comments, if you want to, point out something I missed, great. Thanks again for hanging out, and give me a thumbs up, a like, a share. Greatly appreciate it.